And that is why we are so concerned that they're heading towards the children. As we've seen in many different ways over time, history repeats itself. Go for the children, and you will change the generation. As I said in the beginning of this, if we did volleyball every week for 7 years, we would become a volleyball nation in 1 decade. And that is not religious. You don't have Christian volleyball, do you? Okay, but Christian yoga, why do we even have to call it something? My name's Jennifer Sedlock. My husband is Steve. He couldn't be here today. He's working. And we are the family who filed against the district. And we were amongst a lot of families. I'll tell you, 2 years ago, okay, taller than I thought. Okay, 2 years ago, I, like many people, as a Christian, thought yoga was fine. I didn't do yoga. I chose to do it once. I did, and I actually got stopped many times from doing it again. I didn't know why. I didn't even know I was being stopped, but now, in the plan, I sort of realize why. Because I'm a health expert. I was an aerobics instructor for years. I taught PE in our school system. I know what's supposed to be happening in the school system in those regards. I know their standards, all of that. And so when we became aware of yoga at back to school, I still wasn't even concerned. My husband was, but I wasn't. And then I kept getting invited to parent meetings to say what's going on. Because in my school, we hadn't started yet. 5 of the schools started, 4 of them were starting in January. So in October 4th, to be exact, of 2012, I went to a parent meeting and I sat and I watched about 20 parents representing 40, because their spouses were at home, sharing the actual specific religious, spiritual things that were happening in the classes. And then Dean was there, and I thought, wow, God means business. Because not only do we have someone who's pastoral, that's an attorney right here, and all of these parents, and the person who invited him wasn't even there. And when you look at all the pieces of this, it's amazing. It's only God's hand in each of the things. Even today, some of the things that are surrounding this meeting, we couldn't have planned, nobody could have planned, but God. And so I left that meeting and I said, okay, if something serious is going on here, I need to research it. So it didn't take long. Literally, within 2 days, I was completely convinced. When I researched the Joyce Foundation, I researched the yoga teachers, I researched how they were even hired. They're hiring, they had to have 3 years commitment for Ashtanga yoga, but they didn't have to have experience with children. Really? So everything was alarming. Everything you look at in, you don't have to dig far in yoga to see, just Google yoga. I mean, see what you see. It's amazing that so many people really don't see it. And we choose not to see something we want to do, and we choose not to see it many times. So that's how we got involved, is I just went to the district meetings for 3 months. We went with hundreds of people. We had a petition of 350 people that we got within 10 days to say, this crosses our spiritual boundary. This crosses the boundary of what we're supposed to be learning at school. And they sat there and looked at us and said, no, it doesn't. Well, as evidenced by all these people here saying it does. Even if it was one person. And if it was something Christian, if someone walked in and said, we can't do that in the school, it would take one person. But we had hundreds saying, there's a problem here. And they just said, no, there isn't. And even the initial concerns that we saw with a couple of the Christians on the board were quieted somehow by the next month after a off-site board meeting. So lots of interesting deception all along the way. At trial, it was so deceptive. Just so many things told that were not true, so many things covered up, and why? See, I think we should have to ask a few questions, and I think you want to ask these questions of, if yoga isn't spiritual, why is it so divisive? Okay? We who came to say there's a problem here have been speaking the truth in love. We have not been mean. We have not been rude. We said, have yoga after school, have it as an option, just not mandatory, just not, we offered all kinds of things. I mean, I don't care what you choose to do with your child after school. That's because it's religious, and those are choices we can all make. But to bring it into the school, that was the problem. And so if the divisiveness comes, and the absolute venom that comes out of people when you bring up yoga, from the yogis and the Christian yoga people even, it's even worse. It's amazing how venomous people are. So why? Why does that happen? When I'm just saying this crosses my religious boundary and then someone has a need to attack, that is from the devil. You can tell. It is just so... And if people don't believe in the devil, well then, it is still awful. You say you're centering yourself. And Robbie's book, he talks about spending hours and hours and hours in yoga and centering yourself, and how much violence the men to the women are right after coming out, spending all that time centering yourself. So it is just not true. You do not center yourself. Yeah, you get self-centered. That's exactly what you do. And that is what our world is doing, self-centering. And this whole going green sounds so good on the top of it. But when you layer and layer down what's happening, it's what Peter's talking about. There's the one-ism. And on some layers it's good, and on some layers exercise is good. And certain, pieces of, one pose, if someone says, oh, if I only do the one pose, is that okay? Well, stretching is not all yoga. I mean, there's a lot of great stretching. There's a lot of things out there. But I'd have you ask, if yoga isn't spiritual, why is it so divisive? And why are they going after the children? If you spend 7 years doing something in your school because of the culture, where does that set up our children when they walk out of there? They're setting up for a lifetime of thinking yoga's fine because, well, my teachers said it was okay, my parents said it was okay, and in this case, unfortunately, inactivity is pro-yoga. All the people who are afraid to pull their kids out, and there are hundreds of people so afraid to pull their kids out, so hate the program, don't want to do it. There are teachers leaving the district. There are at least 10 friends of mine I know who've already left the district. People are leaving in droves. The district doesn't care. We've told them. There are injuries happening. Girls' young hips, we warned them. You're not supposed to be doing this kind of stretching without the kind of supervision. You have 40 to 60 kids in a dark classroom. Why does it need to be dark? Yoga isn't dark at the YMCA. Why do they make it dark? They make the rooms dark and quiet and cover them up. Why? Ask yourself why. I was just in a yoga studio last week that they built on one of the campuses, La Costa Heights. I actually had to move my child from one school to another because of the harassment we got because of the lawsuit by other parents, by some of them Christian parents. And so we moved to the other school where they happen to build 2 new studios this year. All of a sudden we have enough money for 2 yoga teachers and a PE teacher for each school. And it's because of the Joyce Foundation, now Somana, giving money. And to wrap it up, I went in and saw that yoga studio. They still have namaste. They still have the bells. They still have all the things they say they've cleaned up. They're still there. They're on the wall. They're on step 2 on the wall. We asked, what is this signature? And the teacher said, I don't know. Well, I know her background. She's been to India 3 times. I know she knows what that Sanskrit word is. Why lie? I don't know. So keep asking questions.